Hey everyone, this is Kevin from thechesswebsite.com, and today we're going to be looking at a cool opening, the Latvian Gambit, which starts out with pawn e4, pawn e5, knight to f3 development move, and pawn to f5. And as you can already see here, without this f5 pawn move, this is a very common opening that you'll see from white. But a lot of times, as you can imagine, they're not studied up on this move right here. A player starting out with e4 and knight to f3 is really not expecting black to play this Latvian Gambit, and a lot of times they may not have seen it at all. And so if you're not playing at a master level, if you're playing club level or below, rated 1800 or below, I would definitely recommend looking at this, because you're going to see this opening a lot from white. And so if you get very good at the Latvian Gambit and you're a very aggressive player, this is not a very good opening if you're not a aggressive player at all. But if you are very aggressive and you want to learn a new line, I definitely recommend this, because black has a lot of success, especially if white's never seen this. A lot of times they can have a very easy win because white's just not accustomed to playing against this defense from black. So we're going to go and take a look at some of the main lines from both sides and talk about some of the key concepts that you always want to remember when playing the Latvian Gambit. The main line continues with knight takes on e5, and black has three options here, and we're going to take a look at each of those. The first one, the main line, is queen to f6. I don't really play this a lot, but it is the main line, so I want to talk about it. And white has two options here. He can bring down his pawn to d4 to hold on to this knight, or instead, since he's going to kick his knight out anyway if we move our pawn up, a lot of times you'll see white bring his knight back to c4 here. And that's the main line. What you also may see from black is bringing his knight to c6. And a lot of times from here, one of the common themes you'll see in the Latvian Gambit is white bringing his queen down to h5. From here, black's forced to bring his pawn to g6. Now from here, white has two options. He can take our knight on c6, attacking our queen. From here, it's actually recommended that you take with your pawn on d7 to c6 instead of taking the queen right away. The queen's now going to be forced to move, but instead this is just a better setup if we take this queen and now he takes our queen. It's just a better setup for us. So that's one option that white has, but another option that you'll see a lot is if white takes on g6. And he can do this because if we take back on g6, he can come down and take our rook. Now that's not to say that we don't want to do this. Again, a lot of times if you play the Latvian Gambit, you're all about sacrificing pieces over and over and over again. So a lot of times you'll see players for black either capture and just give up this rook, and at the same time try to completely get the white queen out of the game and then start to attack. Or instead, if they don't take here, you may see the knight come to f6, holding down this pawn on h7 and at the same time attacking this queen on h5. So if the knight moves for a discovered check, then we can now take this queen. So this queen for white is going to have to move now. So this is why a lot of times, more times than not, you'll see knight to f6. So this is one of the options with knight to c6 from from black. Another option that we do have is bishop to c5, and this is another gambit itself. We're basically looking to bait white into taking an extra pawn on f5. Black's going to have a tough time actually playing the game if white decides to bring his queen down, and after we bring our pawn to g6, kind of as we talked about, if he takes, we can bring our knight to f6 and then he can move away. He's going to move his queen away, but this is going to be a tough game for black. Still playable, but a tough game for black. What we're hoping to do if we do play this is a lot of times you'll see white take this extra pawn on f5, and this is really what we're going for. And we're going to actually sacrifice another piece by bringing our bishop down to f2. And from here, white's going to recapture with his king, and then we're going to bring our queen to h4, checking this king. As you can see, black's giving up material in hopes that he can get the white king out in the middle and then start to attack and hopefully get a checkmate pretty soon. Now from here, white has limited number of moves. If he tries to retreat, let's say to g1, then black can come in and retake this knight on e5 after he checks this king. Now if white tries to just come back to e2, again we can do the same thing. Check the king and attack this knight. The best move for white is to bring his king to f3. And now from here, black has three options, and you can play around with what you think is best. But the three options really that you have are bringing your knight to f6. And this is good because these two squares on g4 and e4 are really huge attacks for black. If we kick this knight away for white that's on e5 with a simple move, pawn to d6 or something else, even bring our knight into the action, then these two squares become huge. We have our queen and our knight attacking these squares. We can get both of them involved. Those are going to be very deadly, and white's going to have to do something to defend those. The second move that you may see if you're playing black is knight to e7. And this is done so that he can, in turn, his next move, if he wants to, is take this pawn on f5. And this is going to give his knight a really active square where he has some very deadly checks. He can then come to d4 as a nice check. If he moves his queen, he can come to h4. So a lot of players will like to play their knight to e7 so that they can capture this pawn, and also they would like to castle on the king side and have this rook on the f-file bearing down without the knight in the way. If the knight is played to f6, then he's going to be in the way, but if he's played to e7 like we're looking at right now, then after we castle on the king side, this rook's going to have the f-file to bear down on. Then the last move that you will see is pawn to b5, and this does two things. One, it starts to attack on the queen side. As you can see, we've already started to obliterate the king side. This starts to attack the queen side, but at the same time, the next move from black is we'd like to bring our bishop to b7, and this is going to attack white, check him, and also get another piece involved, and at the same time gain a tempo for black. So these are your three options. All three of them, as you can tell, are very aggressive from black, and this all stems from hoping that white earlier on took the extra pawn on f5. Again, if he doesn't and he brings his queen down immediately, it's going to be a little harder. It's still going to be a very aggressive game from black that he can play, but it is going to be a little harder. So let's go ahead and take a look at another line that you may see if you do play the Latvian game. Another variation you'll see a lot is bishop to c4. From here we're just going to take this pawn on e4. The knight's going to be forced to move, capturing on e5, and we're going to develop our knight to f6, defending our pawn. And we're going to go ahead and give up this move to knight to f7. And from here our queen's going to come to e7. This is very important, and we'll see that in just a minute. We're going to give up this rook. Again, the Latvian Gambit, feel free to give up as much material as you need to. After it does this, we can now bring our pawn to d5, and the bishop now has to come back to e2. If he doesn't come back to e2, if he goes back to, let's say, b3, then we can bring our bishop to g4, and we're going to win this queen one way or another. Again, this queen on e7 is very important because it eyes down, and if our pawn moves, we now have a discovered attack on the white queen, on the white king. So this is one variation that you'll see more times than not. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few more. The next move you might see from white is knight to c3. Simple development move, attacking the center and getting another minor piece involved. And from here, black's going to play similar to the king's gambit on the reverse side, and he's going to bring his knight to f6, attacking this pawn here on e4. And at the same time, he's going to look to get his bishop, his dark square bishop, involved, and then castle on the king side and have his rook on this f-file bearing down. So if you're familiar with the king's gambit, a lot of times if you see this variation from white, it's going to be a lot like the king's gambit, just played on the flip side as you're playing from black. So you may see this. It's very rare that you will see this, but you may see it. And the last one that you may see, instead of taking with his knight to e5, you may see the pawn capturing on f5. And this is completely fine. Black's going to continue to push up the board with pawn to e4, attacking this knight. And then you may see the knight come down to e5. And then black has a few options, but the most common move that you'll see from black here is bringing his knight to f6, kind of as we talked about before. Now, instead of attacking, he's defending this pawn on e4, getting ready to get his dark square bishop involved. At the same time, he can castle on the king side. So as you can see, this is going to be a very aggressive line from black as he eyes down this f-file. And these are the most common lines that you will see at the Latvian Gambit. Obviously, the first couple that we looked at are going to be the ones that you see more often than not, but there are a few times where if someone completely hasn't seen it, you may see them play one of these last few moves. But as you can tell from this opening, it's a very aggressive opening, and black has a lot of good lines that he can completely destroy white. So if you're playing with someone that hasn't seen this, or you're playing someone much higher rated that is completely well versed in the Italian game and the Rai Lopez and a lot of the games that stem from this knight to f3 in the very beginning, you may just want to throw this in there and just see how they react to it, because a lot of times white has an epic fail and just gets destroyed by black. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys have learned something new about a new opening that you may have never seen before. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.